Hi, greetings. It's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and this is video number 2 in my Entrepreneurial series. And this one is going to be talking about laying the groundwork for your business. Specifically, I want to talk about individual leadership and entrepreneurial startups. In this video, we're going to talk about why individuals are so important to the success of any new business. We're going to evaluate the entrepreneurial orientation and examining your risk tolerance, boundaries, and personality style. Yes, in business, your personality really does matter. And then we're going to be talking about triggers for starting a business that supports each individual to a process including families, networks, community, and finances, and really considering the form of business that you would like to be doing business in. So let's talk about large organizations versus entrepreneurial businesses. In large organizations, believe it or not, people are essentially treated like they're not that important. You know, everybody's kind of a number in large organizations. Knowledge is widely dispersed, and you have greater resources in larger organizations. There's so much redundancy in organizations that sometimes there is personnel that are in crisis because they've got too many bosses, or there may be too many different ways of doing things or expectations that are different. With entrepreneurial businesses, it really does depend on each individual. Everybody is important. There's more of a concentration of knowledge because usually there's fewer players. But there's a disadvantage of usually having a lack of resources. But they're essentially family-owned businesses, and it allows people to have some flexibility around families. And of course, I think any organization really should recognize that they have to take a total person approach, that they're hiring people that have lives outside of work, and when you can support people in that way, it helps bring out the best in most cases. Collaboration is a really important concept in business. Understand that collaboration with small groups can help flush out new ideas, and it helps get things done quicker and more efficiently and hopefully more effectively. So really considering who you partner with in a business makes a difference. When you have a smaller business and you have hired the wrong employee, that employee could sabotage the success of the whole business. And likewise with a business partner too. So you really have to be choosy when going into business with someone or hiring an employee as an entrepreneur. People can make or break you as a business owner. So with new businesses, there are some main advantages that you can consider. The greatest advantage is that it's owned and run by usually the same person. New businesses can fill market niches. New businesses, generally speaking, have greater flexibility, and due to agency theory, which I want to talk about, they can maximize the value of the business. So here's agency theory. It's a managerial theory that believes individuals act to maximize their own benefit. In a large corporation, a manager may act to maximize their own benefit, but not necessarily the shareholders. And in contrast, the individual who owns a small business will always act to maximize the value of the business in the interest of the owner and that of the businesses that they are aligned in. So as a business owner, you really must consider need versus luxury. The cost of luxuries like flying first class can be an extravagance that a lot of new business owners really can't afford or shouldn't afford. But you really have to consider what really is a necessity and what is actually a luxury. You know, you've only got a finite amount of resources available. Are you using it to maximize the success of your business? evaluating your entrepreneurial orientation. There's a number of issues that potential entrepreneurs need to consider about themselves before starting a new business. And these things really are: 1, risk tolerance; 2, prior experience; and as I introduce this, personality orientation. So risk tolerance is about whether or not you have the tolerance to start a new business. How much risk are you willing to take? Are you aware of where that break-even point is? And will there be enough revenues to sufficiently cover the expenses? And those expenses include your living costs. And so overhead. So you have to be aware of what your own risk tolerance is. Risk levels, an example would be like Evel Knievel. He was famous. I can remember watching him on television in the 70s, and he was famous for taking his motorcycle and taking huge risks, and jumping across 100 different cars. I don't remember the amount of cars, but he also took a very strong stance against taking drugs. And some people would consider that risk taking. So you have to kind of know who you are and be aware of the dichotomies that exist within yourself. Prior experience is absolutely important to consider. Your history, your culture, your values. These are the things that help us interpret the world, and we all see things differently. But that prior experience places boundaries in us and may limit us in our ability to recognize what we can do. So we have to make good decisions, but be aware of who we are and what may be holding us back from making the biggest difference. Some of my favorite personality assessments out there, and I'm a certified Myers-Briggs practitioner, but Myers-Briggs is one of those really cool tools that really helps you to get to know yourself, and it measures your introversion or extroversion, and sensing and intuiting, thinking and feeling, and judgment and perception. And according to Myers and Briggs, there are 16 different personality types, and I'm sure I talk about this on another video. But Big Five is another one that really can determine your level of open-mindedness, outgoingness, conscientiousness, agreeableness, emotional stability, and extroversion. So it really is important that you get to know yourself as a business owner, because you're going to control your own successes and failures. So I want to shift gears and talk about some of the triggers for starting a business. Sometimes they can come from both positive and negative stimuli. Being laid off, for instance, being approached with a new business idea, risk return level, and being financially tolerable, having little to lose financially by failure, evidence and idea for improvement is doable, being spurred to action by a book, seminar, or something else like that, or experiencing a midlife crisis, or observing community business development efforts, or some kind of uncontrollable inability to climb the corporate ladder. So a lot of different reasons that people start businesses. They want to be their own boss. They want to be able to make a positive difference. Something in their soul leads them to do things differently. Some triggers can be segmented into two different categories. One are personal motivations, and others essentially are circumstance motivations. And personal motivations come from the individual itself, and it really is the strongest motivation possible. And then there are those circumstance things that we talked about, where you have to reposition yourself and become opportunistic. Lots of women these days are becoming entrepreneurs because they've experienced at least a perception or feel blocked by what's known as the glass ceiling. But more than 50% of today's businesses are owned by women these days, and it is the fastest growing segment of all entrepreneurs. So it really is a wonderful opportunity for people to take control of their lives and make a positive difference in their own way. Let's talk about supports. There is so many different types of supports and resources that you should consider as an entrepreneurial. Newer, family, social networks, community, and then other financial resources. You got to have a solid foundation in place and systems in order for you to be a successful entrepreneur. So you've got to at least get buy-in from your family. Family are people who could provide support in the needs of guidance, suggestions, and potential funding. So many times, one of the problems is that sometimes when family members get involved, feelings can get into business, and as no family is perfect, but sometimes people can have disagreements, and those disagreements could actually sabotage the success of your business. Your network is really important. We all know other people, and making a list of all the people that you know might be able to help provide you with feedback and advice, if not some kind of financial backing that you're going to need. In our community, sometimes they have business incubators that house new businesses and provide some critical service. It actually helps make your business more legitimate and provides office spaces at subsidized rates. And it may provide some legal or tax assistance to you. So you have to be aware of what's available in your community. And finally, really look at the real costs of doing business. So many people start a business without really assessing the financial needs. How viable is your business? And so you have to use the cost estimator calculator to really take a look at the realistic costs of doing businesses and be able to project what your revenues are to be able to see if you can get the return on your business. Sometimes you may have a good idea, but it just is not viable. As I mentioned in the last video, use the SBA.gov website so you can get an idea of some of the different types of businesses that are out there, and take a look at some of the models that are in there and resources to help you build it. So in this video, I've talked a little bit about what you need to consider in starting a business. Do you have the right sources? Do you have the right motivation? Who are you? And what's available to you to help you be a leader in your own business? Do you have what it takes? All right, so I know that I've talked on, and it's kind of the nature of these videos, but I've given you some things to consider. I highly suggest that you take a look at the rest of the videos in this series and review these things to kind of refresh some ideas to help you really create a business that feeds your soul and that is sustainable. All right, thank you so much for your valuable time. I hope that you have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it.